Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy Beaky, and let's talk about finding the solution to the loot box problem. Yes, the loot box. The thing where you might open up and get the amazing, glow-in-the-dark, cool, awesome weapon that you've been waiting for, or you could get the plain one that doesn't glow and your friends feel better than you because you're not envious because you don't have the cool, glow-in-the-dark one. Oh, you just have the basic one. You're not really the cool kid with the best little skin. But realistically, guys, there is a lot of things going on with loot boxes over this last generation. And in this video, I want to break it down in different segments in a more serious but yet fun discussion. What are loot boxes? We're going to start off with that. The types of loot boxes. Who is responsible for actually enacting changes with loot boxes? Quick little thing. ESA, the publishers, us as well. What are the solutions to fixing and solving the loot box problem going into this next generation of console and PC gaming? And personally, my solution, which, spoiler alert, is going to be a combo of everything we talk about here today. But before we get on into the video, well, I'm glad to be back here making two videos for you guys right now. I need you guys to go ahead and like the video, share the video, and leave a comment down below to let me know what other type of topics like this you'd like me to take a little bit of a deeper dive on with in the future. Also, I'll start having actually a schedule to the channel. So on Mondays you will find a video like this. Tuesday you might have something related to D&D just for fun for myself. As you guys know, I started a channel with my girlfriend. Go check out the latest video we put up on the channel recently. We did a little vlog together. We did some PvP, player versus player in Dungeons and Dragons. It was a lot of fun in this gladiator arena setting. So go check out our opinions on that over there. And also on Fridays you guys will get another video from me, another topic related like this as well. And between all that, I will be going ahead and making videos related to the news if anything interesting happens that I would like to talk about as well. But let's jump right on into it. What is a loot box? Well, if you go on over to somewhere like Wikipedia, one of the first results will come up says, in video games, a loot box, also called a loot-sized prize case, is a consumable virtual item which can be redeemed to receive a randomized selection of further virtual items or loot, ranging from simple customization options for players, avatars, or characters to game-changing equipment such as weapons and armor. So the reason why I wanted to read the Wikipedia one first is, well, Wikipedia is basically a public thing where anybody can write anything they want. And there's other sites out there as well with other definitions, and I wanted to bring this up because another website that has a definition of a loot box, well, said loot boxes are considered to be a type of monetization. That's the last line they put up there. And I thought that was kind of interesting because this site was like, well, they're a type of monetization, hinting that they're kind of a bad thing. Or you could go over somewhere like Urban Dictionary where it says the absolutely effing worst thing that games can incorporate. It's the devil's device. It makes it so that you get useless items 99% of the time, so you can't progress. You must do microtransactions to get past this shit. Basically, it makes you rage so you can pay the devs money. Now, why would I want to read you guys all those different definitions of loot boxes? Well, because there is no defined thing on what is a loot box in general. Most gamers say that loot boxes as well, you random crate where you open it up and get a random prize. It's the simplest way, but when you put in microtransactions in there, does it have to be paid? Is it unpaid? Or is there another way to be manipulated into opening these boxes? That's where we get into the next question. What are the types of loot boxes? Let's start off probably with one of the most simple ones. We have Overwatch over here. Some gamers will think this is the epitome of the perfect type of loot boxes. It's just cosmetics. It doesn't matter. It's just cosmetics. You play the game, you get some random loot boxes when you level up, or you can pay your money for loot boxes and you can get yourself skins, sprays, and all this stuff like this. System I despised in Overwatch, personally. I'm going to say right there, I don't like the Overwatch mechanic as well. But that's what some gamers say is fair because it's just for cosmetics. Then you have the pay-to-win aspects of loot boxes you've seen in Call of Duty games incorporated in the past, and other games like Battlefront we're going to incorporate, and a lot of mobile games incorporated pay-to-win loot boxes. And then there's the loot boxes that are pay-to-win but are hidden away. Did you guys know about Pokemon Go actually has loot boxes? Yeah, a game like Pokemon Go does. They're eggs. So Pokemon Go does events where you can hatch eggs to get rare Pokemon, and these events are usually very limited time. Sometimes it's a month, sometimes you might only have one weekend, sometimes you have 2 weekends, and you have a chance of getting a shiny Pokemon or really hard and great IV, great EVs. These are Pokemon that are very strong and going to be stronger once you level them up and power them up. So you have a low percentage of getting these Pokemon, so you have to hatch them in eggs. How do you hatch the eggs? Well, you walk around to hatch these eggs. But if you only could hold 9 eggs at a time, right? If you even could, if you only hold 9 eggs at a time, it's going to take you a lot of time to hatch those eggs, having to walk up to 10 kilometers to get that done. Well, you could buy these little egg things that boost the speed at which you hatch your eggs, and now you can get your Pokemons faster in these events. So this makes it in a loot box in an indirect way. They have you buy this hatcher device. I'm sorry, I'm just blanking on the name right now because I play Pokemon Go. And you buy this device and it speeds up how your eggs hatches, and inside these eggs are going to be a random Pokemon. Yes, it could be that shiny, awesome dragon type Pokemon you want, or it could just be another Charmander or another Pidgey. You just never know depending on the event going on. So Pokemon Go does it such a good way that most players that I've talked to that play this game don't consider Pokemon Go eggs as loot boxes, but truthfully they are loot boxes. And especially during the events, you could look on Reddit and read about people spending hundreds of dollars on hatching devices to try to get that crazy good Pokemon with the stats they want. So there's a lot of different ways that developers incorporate loot boxes into their games. Some of them more sneaky like Pokemon Go, and some of them are more upfront like Overwatch. Hey, it's cosmetic, buy it, get something random, and move on with your life. So those are the general types. It's either going to be pay to win, cosmetic, boom, or it's going to be something like Pokemon Go where it's obscured and not as obvious right in front of your face, right? And I just want to touch on one other type of loot boxes that's a little bit more tricky and is going to make all this a little harder to define. When you're talking about stuff like packs for card games, where a card game online like the Elder Scrolls Legends or Magic the Gathering is emulating a physical game that exists, where you go to the store, you buy a card pack, and now in the game you open up a card pack, and sometimes you'll get the great card you want and you can add it to your deck, and that's going to be like, oh well, this is just like playing the card game. Are those loot boxes, or are those just, well, copying the mechanics that you would get from actually going to a store and buying the packs yourself? That's another way we have to add in there. So like how we got the different types of loot boxes out of the way, let's actually go into the next part of the video and talk about this more in depth. So what actually is the loot box problem? I think it's worth my time to actually explain the different problems gamers and some government bodies have with loot boxes and why it's become such a big topic in the gaming industry over the last few years. Well, one of the biggest problems is its trend to move towards a gambling mechanics when you look at it at a quick glance. You put money in for some of these boxes right here, and you hit the lever and you get something random back. Now, the thing you get back is digital, and the argument currently is, does these digital items have any value? The gaming companies will say no, they're not have any value, can't sell them back, but they do have value to the players who receive them and the other players who play with you, because if they didn't have value intrinsically, people wouldn't spend money for them to begin with. That's what I personally believe. So you're putting money in, you're getting yourself a skin or whatever that might be, and now other players will see that skin, and now you have the cooler light up skin and your friend doesn't, and then that gives it value. So right there, there's a value to you and probably the other player bases around you. But then there are players like me who don't care if you have a better skin than me, and are probably going to play the game and move on without spending any money on the loot boxes anyways. The other bigger problem in this sense right now is that governments are feeling like, well, if there are gambling mechanics in these games and they're not regulated, they could be having an effect on kids. And kids might be getting introduced to a form of gambling at a very young age. This is stuff that still needs to be researched and still need to be analyzed to really find a concrete connection to be like, yes, this is 100% is gambling. Yes, it might trigger the same feeling and adrenaline and nephrine in your brain, if I'm saying that correct word, and it might feel awesome just like if you were gambling, if you ever gambled, if you're old enough to do that, but there's probably still need to be research to 100% link that. And some governments have, like Belgium, have linked it together and banned it altogether. Some other governments are still looking at it, like the UK. The US is so divided by states right now, and the federal government is not getting involved in it yet. It seems like they're just like researching it, but they're not really like enacting laws. But some states like Hawaii, they're trying to push the laws ahead and try to say like, hey guys, you got to change the way. Now, for me, the biggest issue with loot boxes is how it messes with your mentality. And like I said, research still needs to be done, but on the basis level, there are people out there who could easily get addicted to these loot boxes and overspend. And this overspending is more than just being like, oh, because that's their own problem. I think these companies should, not that they will or do anything about it, they should have a moral obligation to try to alleviate this. You shouldn't be able to spend $20,000 on loot boxes, as you guys will hear about in some of these crazy videos, or spend thousands of dollars in 1 week on FIFA pack because some kid accidentally has their mom's credit card linked to this. Now, that's when we have to move on from just talking about what the problems are to the actual solutions, and we'll get deeper into the problems as well, because I don't want you guys to jump ahead and just be like, well, the parents should monitor their kids, because that is a factor as well. So who can help change the way loot boxes are handled? These are the people that I think have the most direct involvement in changing the way loot boxes are handled, at least in my country, which is the United States of America. I think the government enforcement is one. I think the ESA, which I'll talk about them more soon, the publishers, developers together, the players and their guardians if they're young kids, and knowledge and shame. I'm going to leave that for the last, because I think that's actually a very key point as well. Let's start off with the government enforcement. A lot of countries and a lot of states here in the United States are thinking about, in fact, enacting laws to counteract loot boxes and seeing if they could be classified as gambling. And I actually think this is the worst possible outcome to this. I know some gamers will hate me for saying that, but I think the video game industry needs to step up first before governments come in and enact bills that might make a sweeping change to the way loot boxes are handled. Because we could even go deeper into what a loot box is. Is a loot box in Borderlands classified the same way as a loot box in Overwatch? And by loot box, I mean literally there's a loot chest in Sanctuary that you open up and it gives you a bunch of loot. Should that be, regulated? Or maybe just because there's no way to get put money into that game to enact that loot boxes, that it shouldn't be matter at all. So one of the easiest solution to the loot box problem is governments come in and say, hey, this is gambling mechanics, stop it, no more loot boxes, find a different way to make money from your games. And I think that would be the worst possible way to go about it, because as bad as loot box is, I think there are ways to do it correctly, and there are other solutions. Well, government intervention is a simple solution that we have right now. Let's go on to the next one, the ESA. Now I'm going to read a little thing about the ESA so you know who they are. The ESA is the voice and advocate for the companies that publish computer and video games and provide its members with expert insights into legal and policies. I just want to read that part, legals and policies. So the ESA is this big body of gaming publishers all working together, and it's some of the bigger ones. It's not always the little indie developers, and a lot of big companies have left the ESA as well, but they can help enact the changes industry-wide to help change how loot boxes are handled. They could change it so that there is no pay-to-win stuff that affect gaming mechanics, that there are limits on how much somebody can spend in a given month, that there are child safety guidelines that on the boxes or on the downloads, it's big in your face that this contains a potential gambling mechanic that you might need to be aware of. There's a bunch of things that they can do with policy-wise to help enact change industry-wise before the government does anything. The unfortunate problem here, the ESA is managed by companies that are publicly traded. So these companies are profit driven in the most cases. There are very few publicly traded companies out there that's not going to put their profit margin ahead of, well, maybe potentially, making it better moral choice. these days. It's just not. Not everybody's going to be CG Project Red, who's going to be for the gamers, or like, with their new policy with GOG, where you could get 30 days to return a game for any reason. That's a crazy policy for a digital platform. 30 days, you didn't like the game, return it for any reason. That's awesome for the gamers, for the customers, and that makes me want to use GOG more than other platforms, because I feel like that's a customer-friendly policy. So ESA could put policies out there to help restrict how much people who spend too much on loot boxes spend, help educate parents, help enact ways that people are more educated across the board on what type of loot boxes are in the game, or help put guidelines out there to be like, okay, now every game is going to have the odds in big bold letters that clearly show like, hey, you only have a 0.01% chance of getting this awesome thing that you want. And that's where I think ESA could really help out. Like, they could tell game publishers like, hey, how about we not do a 0.02 chance of getting something? Let's just leave it at 1% so people don't have to spend so much money to get it. But when you're publicly traded companies, have the incentive to make as much money as possible, EA and some of their mobile games, Activision, they're not going to want to bend their will to these policy changes unless they're forced to by government, and that's the biggest thing. I hope the ESA steps up and before it gets too bad, but if you guys have seen Jim Sterling videos on this, sometimes the game industry doesn't do anything until they're forced to actually make that move, and it seems right now they're going to be sitting there and waiting for everybody else to force them into action. But ESA is probably the best bet to enact change without government policies. Now let's talk about the publishers and the developers. The publishers and developers have a big handling in this. Publishers want to make money, developers want to make creative games, and of course pay their staffs. So developer might want to pitch a game to a company, and they'll be like, okay, I got this great idea for this new game. It's a heavily story-driven game. It's going to cost $60. I think it's going to do well. People will love it. Publisher will come like, well, how are you going to make recurrent money from this game? That's the new thing. How are you going to enact incentive to buy into this game and giving it more money if you don't have a DLC plan right away? The developer might be like, I just want to make a good game, sell it for a price, and we're going to make a profit on the game. My budget is good. You're going to make a few $1 million, and players. But no, the publishers want as much possible money as they possibly can from each title they release. In fact, if you look at Activision, they're releasing less and less titles, but the titles they are releasing, they are trying to get as much money from each title overall, instead of releasing a bunch of titles and making some few bucks from each of them. Yes, they have their little indie line where they'll help some indie developers out, but overall from Activision directly, they're not putting them out as many games as they used to, that they're not sure they're going to be making money on the long end, or it's going to be a big seller over time. So it would need to be a change in philosophy for these companies, where they go back to a day that will put out quality titles, make their money, and let the developers just not have to put recurrent spending mechanics in their game. Now, here is the most interesting thing. There is a solution to this that publishers just seemingly do not want to do. And this is one of my big things. Skip the loot boxes altogether and just sell the gamers what they want. If somebody wants that microphone, if somebody wants that voice line, just sell it for 50 cents. I've not had a situation where I felt a game has done this well enough. Like, if you're going to be separating things out for people to buy, instead of putting them in a box where they get a bunch of garbage that they don't want, just let us buy every single thing for 50 cents or $1. It doesn't need to be $4.99, $5.99, because that seems like the opposite thing. If you look at a game like Fallout 76, which has a microtransaction store, their prices are outrageously expensive. They don't have loot boxes, but they sell things individually. They usually overprice them, and the word microtransaction doesn't seem to really exist these days. It's all too much money. So how about we actually use microtransactions for what they are? 50 cents to $1 charges on these smaller little items. Yes, it reduces the maximum cap that an individual player, the whales, can make, because a whale might just buy every single thing they want, and that might only come out to $100. But if you're already spending $60 in a game, now you just got the custom to spend $160. Or if you're selling the exclusive deluxe edition, well, now you just got $200 because they bought a $100 deluxe digital edition, which you don't even have to sell a physical case or booklet for. You got them to download the $100 edition, Ubisoft, and now you got them to buy the little items they want. It's not the perfect solution, because games like DOA out there really rip you off on some of the prices, but I still prefer to be able to buy the items I want directly than buy a loot box. I will never I just don't buy loot boxes in these games. I won't do it. But if I saw the one skin and I love the game that I'm playing, I might be willing to give you $2 for that skin. You know, I think that's a really cool solution. Now, first of all, my best way of doing it, I love the idea of expansions like CD Projekt Red games or big, huge DLCs like the Borderlands game does it. They give you a game for $60, all the customizations is in it, all the cool skins are in the game, they're all just in the game content right there, and then you play, share it with your friends, say how cool I look, how cool you look, and then we want to support the game for being a good game. And then we want more content for the game down the line. Every time a DLC comes out for Borderlands, I get it. Witcher, I played the heck out of that game. I didn't play all the DLCs because there's a lot of DLCs, but I played a lot of it and I support that game and I'm going to buy their next game as well. I feel like as a player, as a customer, I'm willing to support these publishers more if they do friendly things to me. I legitimately don't go and buy Activision games because end of last generations, they have screwed me over. So I just don't really buy their games. They're just not things I'm going to go out of my way to buy. I might have access to some of the games because a friend's giving me a copy of, let's say, Bungie's Destiny when it first came out, or Bungie 2, Destiny 2 when that came out, or something else like that. That's how I'll get it. But I'm not going to buy their games because I just don't want to support that type of business models they have these days. That's just not my thing. And it's a shame, too, because I think these companies have great legacy IPs, and I'm talking about the big companies, guys, not the indie developers who put out their little titles and they want you to spend their $10 to $15 to $20 to buy them, and now you're thinking, well, should I spend $10 or $5 on a loot box pack to potentially get the skin or the gun, the freaking red dot sight that I want for Call of Duty? So it's like, to me, it's like, why would I spend $5 on a loot box when I legitimately could go buy an indie game that's a full game, maybe hours of content for the same price? Or spend $20 and get a bunch of them, go to Humble Bundle. It's just where you put your money. And the developers, the big ones, the publishers, they're like, well, we're the big guys. You're going to want to play our games anyways. But I don't think they realize that a lot of gamers like me who are hardcore gamers, I will say that, I'm one of those enthusiasts, I am willing to not buy your title if it just makes me feel icky. Like, I could be like, all right, that looks good, but you as a company is not. Star Wars. The latest Star Wars game looked pretty good, but I did not like where EA was at the time, and I didn't buy it. I did not buy Fallen Order. I know it might be a good game, but that's me and my morals. So I think there is something to say with customer relationship where if these publishers change their philosophy and say like, hey, let's make a gooder feeling with our fan base that they would want to buy our products, they will buy our products. And it doesn't have to be through randomized loot boxes. It could either through directly buying the things we want or through expansions and DLC. All right, guys? So if the publishers are willing to change the way they make money, then they are going to make less money from this, most likely, unless they really make good connections with their fan base, because they're making most of their money from those whales, those people who might be on the verge of being addicted to these microtransaction systems with these loot boxes, and they're like, well, if I can make freaking $10,000 from this one guy in a month and this other guy's they're only spending $5-10, why should I limit myself to only make $100? That's why they don't want to sell the things piecemeal most of the times, because they don't want to limit the cap of money they want to make. And I just wanted to talk a lot on the publisher side because they have so much power in this to change things. But as long as they're public, I don't think many of these companies will do anything without a push from the ESA and the industry movement overall. All right, now the next most important people that can enact change: the players and their guidance. How would I say this? The guardian. Sorry, I said guidance, but the guardian. So parents, basically. So if you're under 18, you're considered a minor, right? In the United States. So at that point, you might need your parents' approval to spend money on these things, and you probably shouldn't be a whale at this point and spending thousands of dollars on FIFA packs to get Ronaldo. You really shouldn't be doing that right now because it is affecting your brain and triggering those, ooh, I might just get him, I might just get him. You might be spending so much time opening packs, you're less likely to even be playing the game. It's just like a weird little thing that might be happening with you. And that's where the parents need to come up and get themselves educated on what these loot boxes are. Don't just put your credit cards in there and let your kids have direct access to this stuff, but at the same time, we as adults too need to know our limits. Like, hey, this is not a good system for us to be doing. Am I actually playing this game right now, or am I playing at the chance to spin the wheel to get the thing so I can play the game? I'm gonna keep opening these loot boxes so I potentially could get the thing that I want to play the game. So right now in Pokemon Go, there's you can send your friends gifts, and these gifts contain Pokeballs and other little things. These gifts are completely free. There's no way to pay for them or anything. But they have a cool little animation like loot boxes. And not really animation, but it's a little cool little thing, and they open up pretty slowly. It takes so long to open these things up for your friends. Even though they're free things, so keep playing the game, it takes long enough that I feel like I'm wasting time opening up in these presents than I am actually playing the game, that I will just leave these presents unopened. Now, one reason that could be they want these presents to take longer. It could be a psychological thing. Okay, it takes so long to open up these presents. Why don't I just go to the Pokemon Go store and just buy those Pokeballs? Buy that lure. Buy the things that you can't get lure from the gifts, but buy the things that I would get from these free gifts instead of waiting through the little animation that might take a little time, because they have no button that says open all. And these are all the little psychological manipulation these companies are doing in the background to get players to spend money. It's just a little tiny things. Just making something take a second longer between every single one just adds up time. It's like, come on, just get over with it. I have over 50 friends and I have to open up 50 of these things, and it's just taking time. And I'm not playing the game where you could go to the store and be like, okay, I want 200 Pokeballs, buy, done. So it's like, oh, well, that might be the easier option. Or in the other sense, when you open up friends' gifts, you could get eggs. Those eggs are loot boxes, right? Well, you could only hold 9 eggs at a time. Now, you have 50 friends, you could get 50 eggs from your 50 friends, and the friend eggs usually give you nice stuff because they may be from far distant countries, Japan, Poland, who knows where, right? All over the world. If you only can hold 9 eggs at a time, and you only get 1 free egg hatcher per day, you might want to go to the shop, buy the thing to hatch the egg faster so you could get your loot box open, and so you can open as many eggs as possible in the quickest amount of time to not waste your friend's gift that could have potentially give you the egg that potentially gives you the thing you want, which is all to play with the psychology of all this stuff. And we as players have to sit for a second and realize that. Because I've given my nephew, a Google Play card for Pokemon Go, and I'll be like, hey, don't buy the things that hatch eggs. You're gonna use this to buy Pokeballs, and that's it. It's just when you can't go out and you can't get gifts to spin Pokestops, he plays in the house with us, or we can't play with him. Here, you can buy a few Pokeballs. It's just a cool little gift. It's $10. Play with it. That's a good little gift for the kid. It's buying directly what you want. Now, the other option is, would Pokemon Go be as fun if you could just buy the exact Pokemon you want? That's what I'm talking about here now. Instead of randomly opening up eggs, is buying the Pokemon you want the proper way of doing that? I actually think no. That's why it has to go case to case. Hatching eggs is a great idea, but maybe not give a limit to only having 9 eggs on you at a time. Let us hold 50. Let's hold up to our friend list. Why only 9? That makes no sense. Like little things like that. It's just weird ways these companies manipulate us to spend money. And we as gamers and parents have to monitor the kids and the people around our lives that might be susceptible to these little mental tricks to make us spend money. And let's get into the last little thing right now is shaming and knowledge. This is where it goes and incorporates it with parents and adults. You have to be knowledgeable about these systems. Like I'm knowledgeable about how Pokemon Go works, except for I can't remember the name of the hatchers. Because of that knowledge, I could see what the system is and how they're actually trying to make money from me. It's not that I'm not willing to spend money in the game. It's just that if they're trying to do it in a sleazy way, I'm less likely to support them. That's the thing about it, right? If you're knowledgeable about how the system works, you can prepare yourself to not be scammed or be fooled into spending too much into these systems and wasting your money. The other thing is shame. If the gaming developers and publishers actually put in the ability to see exactly how much money you have spent on these loot boxes right there when you launch your game or in your profile, I would bet it would make such a big impact on how much people spend. If Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, Steam, GOG, all these platforms said, hey, when you open up a game, like, hey, this game contains loot boxes, you have spent $100 in the past week on this game. It doesn't have to tell you that's bad. Just letting the person know how much they've spent in the game over a certain period of time, it would be enough to might shame them, be like, oh, I spent $100 this week. That might be 10% of your paycheck or whatever it might be, just random number. Like, that's a lot of money in my paycheck to be spending on loot boxes. I could have went and bought a whole nother game. I could have went on a date. I could have went to freaking Six Flags. I wouldn't say Disney World, but you can't go to Disney World with that much money. Never been to Disney World, but I don't think you can. But you could have probably went to Six Flags, you know, and just had a fun day rather than spending these money on loot boxes. And the worst part about all this is that it's not that not opening loot boxes can't be fun, because I love opening up the chests in Borderlands. It's just that the manipulative things about them are just annoying. It's really, the time is the funniest thing, because Borderlands, you open a chest, it opens instantly. There's no crazy long animation. It just opens up. Cool, that's the stuff you get. These games make you wait those few seconds before. It's just the anticipation to the, oh my god, I might just get the cool thing I want, and then, no, I didn't. And if you need that type of kick, go play Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop games where you roll dice. You're not spending any money, you're rolling some dice, and you might get the nat 20 that you're looking for, like I did this weekend, which I will be talking about in my other video, because I got to cut off a boss's leg by rolling 2 nat 20s in a row with the Sword of Sharpness. And if you guys are a D&D fan, or if you guys want to look up what the Sword of Sharpness does, yeah, that's like unfreaking believable that could have happened. But back on point, I think shaming players into spending less is actually a great mechanic. If you have a kid that buys loot boxes for FIFA, like, hey, Timmy, at the end of the week, like, how much money, how much of that $50 Xbox card I allow for your allowance this week? Let's say you're richer parents and give your kids $50 every week for being good as kids. How much of that did you spend on FIFA Packed? Okay, let's go look in your profile. Okay, ooh, you spent $30 of your $50 on these packs. Did you get Ronaldo? Did you get the thing you wanted? Oh no? Well, do you think that's actually a smart investment of the $50, Xbox gift card? The kid is like, I guess not. I'm like, oh well, let's look what else you could have got for that $50. You could have got some great games like, well, Rocket League. Rocket League's a few bucks. Okay, if not Rocket League, let's go ahead and get some Halo titles. Like, if he's mature enough for a title like that. Like, look, you could have got all these full games instead of keep on spinning that wheel hoping to get what you exactly want. And all this stuff even goes even in the worst situation where there is games where you could trade and these items are sold onto eBay and all these other platforms, and there are ways to get your money out of these systems, or to CSGO Lotto, like, gambling stuff. Like, all that stuff makes it worse. When there are mechanics to get the stuff, or people stealing accounts for FIFA players and EA accounts just to try to get FIFA coins, that just fosters a community of just scammers, and it's just bad for the gaming industry as a whole. And I hope publishers and the ESA sees that to change this. So let's get to the end of this very long video. My solution. My solution is a combination of all of them. I think it needs to be basically the publishers go ahead with a philosophy change. Put out maybe more games, or more games of higher quality with a reasonable budget, and make your money back and sell DLC or sell the content individually. Stop relying on the whales out there to be the majority of people spending the $10,000 to the $20,000 in your games a month. Yes, there's rich people who could do it, and even if they can afford it, there should be a cap on the ceiling on that, guys. There should be some type of moral stuff there, and you should be fostering a community with your players to want to play your game, to want to invest your games. Having these systems in there and having people get all these, cheap sprays that are not worth anything is just not going to make everybody feel better in the long run. So the publishers and developers, if they could work together to do that, it would be great. Then the ESA needs to come out with policies. The policies would be like, hey, how about we cap out how much people spend in loot boxes in a month at $5,000? I know that still sounds insane, but I'm saying $5,000 just because there are rich people. I am not one of them, but there are rich people, and if those rich people have it like that, fine. But $5,000, why have it on unlimited cap is crazy. Give a $5,000 cap on spending on these loot boxes. Make it very clear what you get in the loot boxes with very, very clear odds. Make it very clear like how much money you spent so far in the last month or week in these games, and make it be an industry-wide thing before the comes out that, oh yeah, the government's going to step in and just want to ban everything, and what a ban from the government usually doesn't go into the fine details we need. They just do overreact most of the time than underreact in when it comes to digital media like video games, because video games are still kind of seem like, hey, that's that little thing that kids play, even though it's bigger than movies and music money wise, but it's not as respected as some of those other industries out there. And the last but not least, I think we need to be educated on these systems, all the hidden ways that loot boxes are incorporated in games, the difference between microtransactions, pay to win. I think the pay to win ones just have to go away completely. Like, pay to win loot boxes can't be a thing. Like, that is just not a thing, because if there's pay to win ones and then there's a way to get the pay to win stuff out of the game to be sold on third party sites, then it really does just become a monetary system where it's very much alike to gambling. There needs to be more research done to this to see how these people who are whales link it to gambling. I want to say it, but I truthfully can't. I am not a researcher. I am not a psychologist. I've never met a whale that has spent all these thousands of dollars. I have friends that have spent too much money in things like Clash of Clans, and then too much money in games even like Ark Knights. Yeah, they got hooked on these mobile games. Too much money for me is like $200 in a month. Now, does that make them a whale? Probably percentage-wise compared to the players who spend nothing. But I bet the whales for the companies are people spending thousands of dollars. And I think if he had the money, he had the count out in a month, he's like, oh, I spent this much money, he would have not done. Because every single time he tells me how much money he spent in microtransaction, it's always in a regret. He's never like, oh yeah, bro, I spent $200 in this mobile game. It's like, yeah, I spent too much money in this mobile game. You see the difference there? In the moment, he was having the fun and joy, but in the long run, not. So the solution to the loot box problem is complex, and I hope I put together a basic thing. The ESA needs to put in policies across the board for the video game industry in the United States and say, hey guys, we need to have caps, we need to show this clearly displayed on all titles, clearly percentage, and how about we have these percentages be a little bit more reasonable on the 1% side instead of the 0.002% side, so it looks a little bit more favorable to the government. The ESA needs to be courting the government side of it and keeping the government at bay. That's what I'm trying to say here. It's not that ESA is trying to make it so that the gamers go ahead and spend less money. They're trying to make sure the government doesn't step in and kicks the hornet nest and makes things worse. And then the publishers have to foster a relationship with their players and encourage us to want to spend money in their game, hopefully by focusing less on loot boxes and giving us reasonable prices on buying the items we actually want for maybe 50 cents or something like that, right? And then on top of that, we need to be shaming ourselves and be like, yeah, I spent too much money, keeping track of that for our kids out there, or the people who can't guide and, monitor that stuff themselves. If you're a guardian, you know what I'm trying to say out there, and keep on top of that stuff. Your friends, your girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever it might be, they might have a problem in some mobile game more than you actually can realize. Like I love my girlfriend, but sure, like maybe some game out there she spent too much money on the mobile game at some point. You just gotta talk with them and make them realize, like, hey, you don't really need that skin. You don't really need to buy that loot box. You don't really need to spend so much of your money on this specific item. And how about you go buy a full game instead of buying just a random item in that select game? Because I feel like we're all playing less and less games and more of the same games that are these live services because of these loot boxes, because they want you to be on a longer tail. But what about we play more games and different games to expand our horizon in the gaming industry, and all playing Fortnite and these free-to-play games and the Call of Duties and the Overwatches. And of course, knowledge is power. Keep yourself educated going into the future on all this stuff, because there's going to be so many different types of tricks and ways and different types of gems, coins, and ways to make you not seem like a loot box by converting your money to one thing over another. And I forgot to say this, one of the policies I would like the ESA to enact is just direct monetary transactions. Don't make it be 100 crystals. Just say it's 50 cents. Just say whatever currency that converts into, it's 50 cents. For the loot box, it's 50 cents for the DLC, it's 50 cents for the microtransaction. It's not 50 freaking gems or 75 gems, or a pack of 99 gems and you get an extra 20%, so you can't really do the math quickly in your head, or 15%, let's say 15% to see how much you actually got more. Some people will be able to do that math quickly, some people won't. So this has been Beaky here with the Untitled Game Show. I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and that's been my video for Monday. This was a long one, and I love discussions like this, and I can't wait to do more with you guys. Look out for my D&D video coming up soon, and Friday with another discussion videos. Anything else that might pop up in the channel before then, definitely go check out that vlog video on my channel with my girlfriend. I'm sorry if this background with the TV looks a little too bright, but I'm just testing everything out. I'm recording late at night, and I don't have my lights set up exactly correct right now. I'll be back with more videos for you guys soon. Till next time, peace the heck out. Oh my god, I got the shiny loot box. Yeah, guys, I got it. Love you guys. Share, like, it helps a lot. Peace.